we have got a nice little job today, tucked inside a nice little cupboard in the back of a garage, out the way of everyone. It is an underfloor heating manifold. As you'll see from here, I don't know if you can make it out, it's knackered, it's been siliconed up over the years, or CT1 or whatever that is on there, and it's leaking from various different points on this manifold. So the customer said to me, can you come out, replace the manifold, might as well replace the pump while we're here. Basically this whole section here. So been on to Snug, we've got a 3-port manifold, new pump, ready to go in here, but we've obviously got to get this one out first. So we need to make a little bit of room, because at the minute we've got a water softener in there, and me being not the smallest of guys is going to struggle to get into there. So what we need to do is isolate on this. Usually with a water softener you get this sort of setup, so you can turn these 2 taps off, which will turn off the feed to, get my fingers in, to the water softener, and then this top one here, open that up and it'll be a bypass, so basically the mains not going through the water softener. So we'll open that up, shut this off, get this water softener out of the way, and then we can go through what we're going to do about swapping this underfloor heating manifold. Welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody is doing well. This video is basically a how-to video, how to change an underfloor heating manifold. A customer of mine rang me probably a month or so ago. He had a leak on the top of his current underfloor heating manifold from the viewing glass. Someone had put silicone around it, or CT1 around it, or something prior to him moving in, and it was leaking, and he was constantly topping the pressure up in his system. So he got me out. Mark, can you have a look? I said to him, it was leaking from the side as well. I said to him, in all honesty, you're better off changing the manifold and changing the pump. The pump on it was fairly old anyway. So you've got a whole new setup there. So new manifold, new 3-port manifold, new pump, new mixer valve. I've also put lever valves on it so we can isolate it. You'll see in the video anyway. But it is, yeah, basically just a how to change an underfloor heating manifold. So yeah, I'll let you get on with it. Before we go, Unilite, as always, sponsor the channel. If you want anything from Unilite, use my code MJTIFF at checkout, and it will get you 25% off. I'll put a link in the description as well. And if they've got an offer on, which they usually have some sort of an offer on, put my code in as well, and it will get you a free light or a free mug or something. They'll chuck something in there for you anyway. So let's get on with the video. Hope you enjoy it, and I will catch you very soon. So with that disconnected, I'm just going to undo these 2 washing machine hoses. I'm going to mark up, put an L on that one and an R on that one. I don't think it makes a difference, but just for the sake of it, and then we'll know which ones are connected in. Pop these hoses off, they're just zip tied to the wall here, and then we'll undo that, take that out, take that whole unit out, and then it gives us free run inside there. So let's get a pen. Always mark stuff up. Ow. Left and right. Do that, and then we know where we're at. So I'm going to get this disconnected and get it out of the way. Right, that's the water softener out. We've got a load more room in here now. I can actually get in. So what we've got to do is drain the underfloor heating manifold down. We're going to knock the power off. So we'll knock the power off there. It means that this 2-port valve is not going to get power, so it's going to stay shut, and that is feeding the flow to the underfloor heating manifold. So in theory, we're not going to get anything through there. If we trace the return up, it comes out the bottom of that Magna Clean. So we'll shut that off. Then what we can do, we can get a bucket under here, crack here, drain the water out of it. Then what I'm going to do is straight away put 2 lever valves in here, and then we can turn everything back on heating wise, and we can just be isolated with those 2 valves there. Then we can work on the underfloor heating. Obviously you're going to disconnect the pump, take the manifold out, obviously undoing the loops, marking them up, and then we'll just cut through the top of them ever so slightly, because obviously we've got the split olives on here, so we can't reuse that. We'll cut them and then mount our new Snug underfloor heating manifold on there with the pump, and then work back and connect onto the flow returns. So in theory it's fairly straightforward. So let's get a bucket under here now, get it drained down, and get our 2 lever valves cut into position just here. So I've got a gorilla tub under here. The reason being, you know the job I did the other week with the electric boiler and the cylinder, I left my little orange 12 litre foldable bucket there, so I've got to pick it up. But this is going to be perfect for getting in here. So we'll crack the nuts, get this drain down, and get them 2 valves cut into our pipework just there. So that's the side of the manifold taken off with the pump. We pulled the pipework out. As I say, we've got the 2 valves put on there to isolate it, so we can now open the magnet cleanse back up again. Obviously the underfloor heating zone valve is still off because we've got the power off. We've got the cables there ready to go back onto the new pump. So what we'll do now, we'll disconnect this, mark these up first of all. I'm going to mark them up now. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, just because we don't want to get the zones mixed up. Even though they're not controlled, there's no actuators on here. The reason being, these 3 loops do the whole of the kitchen and the dining area as one complete zone. So it's controlled off there, and obviously a stat inside there in the kitchen. So as soon as that opens up, when the stat calls for it, it opens up all of those 3 loops, so it gets both sides of the room nice and hot. So at least we haven't got to wire in new actuators. So let's get these disconnected off here, get this manifold out of the way, and then we can look at getting the new Snug Underfloor Heating manifold into position. So it is just a case of undoing the nuts going into the bottom of the manifold. There might be a little bit of water, but it's not going to be too bad. So if we undo them, and that one, get all these off, like so. Same for the top ones. Just slacken off, we can spin them off then. And then when they're off, get the screws out, take the manifold out, and then we're just left with those pipes hanging for the new manifold to go on. So with that manifold completely removed now, I've just unboxed the Snug manifold that's going to go in. If you're not connected with Snug on social media, they put that little flyer in the box so you can get connected with them. But we've got the new 3-port manifold here, got a pump in here, and the mixing valve in here. So what we're going to do is get the valves open and offer this up into position roughly where it's going to go. I don't think it's going to be too far away from what was in. Yeah, it's going to be alright, that is. But yeah, we're going to have to drop it down ever so slightly just so we can get onto the existing pipework. But what I'm going to do is make the manifold up first with the valves, the mixing valves and the pump, and then we can offer it in and we'll know exactly where it's going to go. That's the underfloor heating manifold now completely made up and bolted onto the wall, just so I could gauge exactly where we were going to site it. And luckily for us, we can get to that valve. I've spun the pump round that way, that's how I'm going to have it sitting. Obviously we've got the isolation valves here, we've got the lever valves there that we can isolate it anyway, but it was just a case of being able to fill the system back up. So what we've got to do now is reconnect the loops into it. Now what we've got from before is the nut, split olive and the insert, so I'm going to cut them probably about here. Because we mounted the manifold probably an inch or so lower, we've got enough room now to cut them where they need to go, get the new split olives and inserts that come with the pack on, and then reconnect them in. So what we're going to do is go through there, get the top ones connected in, get the bottom ones connected in, and then we can get our female line to coppers onto there and work back up to the valves. So let's get these cut off. I'm going to put them, if I cut them flush, we've got a tiny little bit of movement in them to be able to work it through. And because it's like a union style, let me get it open, I'll show you a little bit there. Because that insert sits within the top of the pipe, the same as what that one is, that we can cut that, and then that will just push in and sit up into the body of the manifold like so. So we get those cut off and get them made up into the manifold. So let's start down at the far end first. I start with the fiddliest one first. So where's my cutters? Here. Right. We offer that up there, about there. Let's cut this one off. Let's get that nut off because it's dropped down the back. Like so. Then Put a new nut on, new split olive, like so, and then our insert. Then I can get that up, like so, into the manifold, and tightened in. I always like to tighten them in as I go along because sometimes they can get quite tight when you're trying to do a bank of them. So we'll tighten that one in. Like so. So that's the first one in. We'll do the same for the other two on the top, and then obviously it's the same for the 3 circuits along the bottom. Get them connected in, and then we can look at the next part there. That's the manifold now in place, all connected up here. We've got the pump on, we've got the valves on, we've got our male line to coppers onto the bottom there. What I'm going to do on this one is come off in press fit. I've just put this in dry at the minute. I haven't pressed anything, I haven't tightened any nuts up, just to see if it would work, and it works a treat, to be fair. Street elbow in there, street elbow there, street 45 there, and then straight up into that fitting. So we can get this one pressed into position now. What I'm going to do is undo it off that nut, undo it out there, take this out and press at least this fit in and this fit in out of position, put it in, and then we can press that one last, and we know that that bit is perfect. And then that's the return done, and then we can look at running a pipe down the back and coming out for the flow. And also we've got one of these connector blocks. I like to use these connector blocks on pumps. We'll come off there, straight into there, and then straight into the clip for the pump. That's the wiring for the pump, so we can connect it onto the end there and then straight into the pump. And if ever the pump's got to be swapped out, you can just use that to connect a new one in. Keep it nice and simple. So let's get this pipework pressed, and then press it into position, and then look about doing the other one. So let's just drop that out, and we know that they've got to sit square. So as always, mark the fit in, push it in, mark it, so then you know if it comes loose. Let's say for instance went to press it and it was down here, you know that it hasn't got the fitting fully pushed in. So we'll do that one there, and then let's mark that fit in there, and then get these two pressed out of position as long as they're square, which they are. Get them two pressed, and then we can press the actual one that's going to connect them all together in position. So let's do this one first. And then we can set exactly where we want that one, get it nice and flush. Let's get it nice and square, which it is. Then if we hold that there, get the jaws on, you spin them around to the lights that side. Give that one a press. Perfect. Then what we can do is pop that into position, like so. And then we know this street elbow is up. Let's put a bit of paste on that actually. Can go straight up into the fitting, like so. Let's just get that nut and olive to just bite on if we can. I'm not going to tighten it right up yet, just going to put it to there, so we know that's fine. We know that's pushed in. Let's mark the fitting again, like so, and then we can get the jaws in there. Just move the camera out of the way. Get the jaws in there onto that fitting. Sorted. And then get this tightened up. And if ever there is an issue with that, you've got a fixed point there, you've got a nut and olive there, and a nut and olive there to get that section of pipe out if need be. So that's that one in. Let's tighten it up there before we forget, and then we'll get the other 22mm pipe in, and then we can get the pump connected. So that's the pipe work done on it. We've come down in the 22mm. We've press fitted down here just because I'm just keen to keep giving it a go and seeing how I'm getting on with it. We haven't put a drain off on here. Someone's bound to comment on it. We haven't put a drain off on here because we've used street elbows and we couldn't get up into that without coming down and using a load more fittings to do it. So that's why we haven't got a drain off on there. It's not a problem. We've got a drain off there. It's not an issue. So we've got that there. We've got the manifold turned off. Pumps all in. Let's turn the water on and get some water and pressurise this section here up to these two valves just to make sure all of our fittings and air vent is turned off and not leaking. There's always something, isn't there? Right, let's try again. Is that one open and the flow open? So now we know. Got auto air vents up there as well. I thought then, you hear that noise? I think every plumber is in tune with that little noise, that little leak of air or that little drip of water. So we're all good here. Just dry that off where we've covered it from the air vent. Then what I'm going to do is get the connector blocks onto the pump feed here. It's going to loop all the way down the back. You can tuck it down the back out of the way, and then connect on, if I can reach it, onto the wiring harness for the pump. Get that connected up, pressurise the system back up. We'll get some MC10 plus in, some underfloor heating inhibitor. It just works at a different temperature because underfloor heating is predominantly lower temperature. You can put that in. It will still inhibit the rest of the house, but we can do that. Also, the customer is on about, before the winter, having a complete flush of the system. So if we get the inhibitor in now, we know it's in there, we'll be flushing it all out at some point anyway. So let's get the pump connected up, wired in. We can get the power back on, repressurise it all up, and pop some inhibitor in through a towel rail upstairs. So we've got that wired up now. These are just the Regan sort of jointing box that you get from most plumbing merchants. They're dead handy, they're 5-way, but they're perfect for connecting the pump up with. So it's just a case of obviously wiring them up, live, neutral and earth, clipping it together, and then we can tuck that just out of the way. And then this end is for the pump, so we just clip this in like so. We'll just tuck that out of the way for now. We'll tidy all that up before we go, but at least now we can get some power onto it. So with the pump connected, let's make sure these air vents are off, because knowing my luck, I'll open it up and they'll be loose and we'll get more water everywhere. So let's open up the manifold like so. It's all good, and let's top the pressure back up in the system while we're here. Filling loop. Let's get that up there for now. I just want to spin it round before I pop some inhibitor in it. There we go, pressure's up on that. Now we've got pressure in here. Right, we've got a little drip on there. Sometimes, let me just hold against that. Sometimes you just got to tweak them little fittings, just nip them up. And always good. So we know we've got water in the manifold. Let's just vent it. Yeah, we'll fold there. And this one will be the same. A little bit of air in that. That's it. That's full. So what we can do now is open the circuits on the manifold. I'm just going to undo them. Just make sure they're seated right onto the manifold, but open them. But this side is where the actuators would go if having completely separate controllable loops. But as I said on this one, it's all fed from there. And then what we'll do on the lock shield side is open these up fully, and then when we start getting the heating on and testing it, see these little red plungers, they will drop down to show us the litres per minute going around the system. But for now, we just open them all up so we know we've got the water running around the system. Let's just pop them back on there for now. Loose. Right then, let's flick the switch and get the system back up and running. So I've just been upstairs, put some MC10 inhibitor into the system, and I've just turned, there's a stack the other side of this wall that controls the underfloor heating for the kitchen and the dining room. I've just turned that on. We've now got, as you can see, the zone valves opened, the pump's fired, and we've just got to set the pump, because on these pumps you've got underfloor heating and radiator settings. So we'll click it onto the underfloor heating and put it on number 2 for the minute, just to run it up. And as you can see, if I pop these off, see where these plungers are? They're down on nearly 3 litres a minute. So that's the flow rate that it's going around the underfloor heating system. We'll let it come up to temperature, we'll get it warm, and then we'll see if we've just got to alter them just a little bit to bring it down. But to be fair, they're usually pretty good. I usually set them around 2 litres a minute. In fact, I'm going to alter that now and put them all at 2 litres a minute. Just so we can gauge it going around that circuit. Pump set on number 2, heating's fired up. So let's give it 10-15 minutes. We'll have a tidy up and just check that the heat's circulating around this underfloor heating manifold. We've been up and running for about half an hour or so now. Heat's coming through this nicely. What I'm going to do is leave it for a little bit, get the water softener and everything back in, get the waste connected back up and all that. And then what I'll do is get the thermal imaging camera, take you through the kitchen and dining area and just make sure it's all coming through and even. But yeah, seems okay at the moment. Everything's going well. Dead straightforward. The Snug Underfloor Heating System manifolds are spot on, to be honest. They're really good, great pumps, dead easy to use, go together really well. So if you're in the market, I'll put all the links to Snug below, but if you're looking for anything to do with underfloor heating, they're the ones you want to go to, because the stuff is spot on. And even, I don't know if you can make that out, even the nuts are engraved with the Snug Underfloor Heating logo. It's the little details that make the difference. So I've just popped into the kitchen, got the thermal imaging out the van. You can just see the heat beginning to come through the circuits, which is exactly what we want. It's all pretty uniform. And up here, you can see it. It's even coming. See, yeah, it's even showing it under the rug. Look, I like that. But yeah, if anyone's asking, Hit Micro camera. I'll put the link in the description below. But you can see it's really starting to come through now, which is exactly what we want. Right, let's go and check everything's alright. So that's the water softener back in, connected up. So yeah, it's all running fine. I don't know if you can make out, they've got a temperature strip along here. At the minute, the flow is working at around 35 to 40 degrees. So I've just showed you inside there, the heat is coming through the floor. The manifold's set to 35-40 degrees, so we're running low temps with that underfloor heating manifold coming in. Boiler's running fine, valves are running fine. I've been upstairs, vented all the rads, everything is running spot on. So that is as straightforward as it gets to refitting or swapping out an underfloor heating manifold without the actuators on it. All up and running, job done, heat coming through, tested, inhibitor. We will be back at some point to flush it through. So hope you've enjoyed that little video showing you how to swap an underfloor heating manifold. If you have, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I'll catch you on the next one.